the college I went to had internet access outrageously early. Every dorm was wired for Cat5 Ethernet access in 1993, or maybe 1994. We got it sophomore year. And it was pretty crazy because, you know, pop culture had been sort of toying with this idea of cyberpunk and, you know, all neuromancer Gibsonian ideas about how digital information and connectivity was going to lead to all these new, you know, fascinating freedoms and exchanges of information, et cetera. So, like, when you're in your early 20s, late teens, you know, information is power for a certain type of person. And you're really kind of obsessed with kind of unpacking encyclopedic histories of information for the things that you're interested in. And so for me and a number of my friends, this was kind of like a perfect storm because this new kind of electronic music was coming up. We had been through like kind of pop, rave, techno stuff, like, you know, early Prodigy, Charlie. I had friends from England who would then, they'd like relatives would come over and visit, and they had all those fucking, you know, tapes with all those, you know, rave DJ shows and underground, you know, DJ sets that were getting passed around. And it's a thing that's sort of weird because when you're a kid, you don't understand how small England is. I mean, relatively, right? If you're an American kid. And how quickly music culture and fads in music culture spread. And they really were. And it was happening crazy fast. But what it ended up kind of hooking on as in America, initially anyway, was this fusion and a growth out of industrial music. So in America, you know, we had house, Chicago, you know, Detroit, New York, Paradise Garage, all these different places that dance and club and house music had evolved. And they had been influential to, you know, DJs and club, you know, kids back in England. But when it came back around this time, there was this thing where industrial record labels like TVT and Wax Trax were involved in signing and bringing this music over. So those record labels had pre-established identities. Like if you bought a Wax Trax CD or Wax Trax 12-inch, you knew exactly what you were getting. Like it was going to be some harsh shit. And that was difficult to kind of, you know, change gears on. Because in England, this was all coming out of some new labels like Warp, and then there's a million other labels. But there was a couple early outliers in America like Astralworks who were trying to bring this over. And one of the things that happened was you had those two sides of the house in America translating this stuff. So with the artificial intelligence series, which is kind of the big thing where you first get Aphex Twin and Black Dog and all this other stuff, that's kind of one way it's coming over, is this colder kind of computer cyberpunk thing in the early days. And then on the other side, you had Astralworks, who were doing like druggy psych compilations. There's the Excursions and Ambient series. This is obviously precursor to lots of other, you know, compilations that were used to try and codify these genres. Like Spectrum was on one of these. Is Spectrum on this one? Steve Fisk. Yeah, Spectrum is on this one. This is an awesome Spectrum instrumental, Pulse Drone, Neon Psi. But the reason you had to get this is this had the track Stone and Focus that was taken off of Aphex Twin's Selected Ambient Works Volume 2. Yeah, there's that Black Dog CD. But yeah, a lot of it, and it wasn't like I'm saying the American labels spoiled it. There were plenty of bands that were self-branding themselves in this way. And a lot of that industrial thing I talked about, it's like FSOL, like ISDN. This was the future, right? It wasn't like Cat5 and coax and, you know, fiber optics. It was ISDN. That was how we were all going to get plugged into the matrix. And yeah, this is electronic brain violence, man. This is one of the only, like, honestly, I don't have a lot of this stuff on vinyl because everything was about CD, because CD was the new thing and it was indestructible. Like the whole idea of DJ vinyl purity, there was a valley here in the 90s where kind of nobody gave a crap about that, and CDs were like kind of the shit to have. I did go back, you know, and get this though. This is the Virgin, you know, it's on Virgin. They're on a major. It's not like it's fucking hard to find. But yeah, like FSOL was totally in this like bio cyberpunk, you know, imagery and like samples of water bubbling, and so there was this whole like bionic cyber thing that had to get kind of flushed out because I thought that was really fucking lame. Like I never liked any of that shit. Like I wasn't into like, you know, Banco de Gaia. pass. Like I wasn't into any of that stuff. But it was really pervasive early on, particularly on stuff. If you were interested in ambient, that whole like nature bioforms thing was super fucking pervasive, like life forms. There was also, what was Loop Guru was another one of those. Oh my God, I haven't thought about these records forever. There is a really good track on that Loop Guru record, somewhere buried in all its like world beat, you know, fucking screensaver bullshit. That's kind of an initial problem in how this is getting translated. And it really takes the success of Aphex Twin to blow that open. No one expected that clean-cut kind of beautiful ambient pulsing, what they started calling intelligent dance music, was going to find such an audience. It really was him. Like, you know, he had his own label. He worked with Mike Pardinas, who recorded his music, who's one of my favorite artists in the early stages of this evolution out of like dance into intelligent dance. I was obsessed with Pardinas. I had all of his stuff. And that, you know, that was really only possible for us to walk backwards when Virgin and Astralworks and these majors, essentially, because Astralworks is coming out of, I think, Caroline Records, who were kind of a major mid, you know, wicked sketchy American label. And Warp had to deal with EMI relatively quickly. So it wasn't like this stuff was like on super hard to find obscure labels. That comes in the aftermath of the success of Aphex and these other artists. When suddenly like IDM electro culture becomes a thing. When this came out, when In Pine Effect came out in '95, you could get this at a shopping mall in America. And when you heard like Roy Castle, there just was nothing like this. Like it's funny, like there's a lot of acid to musique stuff, obviously. Like early Aphex is still really logged into acid and all the 808s and 303s and all that shit, knob twiddling. I never liked acid, like pure acid, because it's, you know, it's like fucking dropping E-music. It's like trance, you know, go out and it's crazy and it's amazing then. But I like the stuff you could listen to in your room, which is what Selected Ambient Works 2 was. It was an absolute, like, there's been nothing like that. You know, club kids in Europe, in Germany, where RNS Records is, yeah, they were banging didgeridoo for a couple of years, and Analog Bubble Bath was a big hit, like, honestly, legit, a big hit for a lot of the European, you know, not Eurodance, but like the club culture and stuff, hardcore DJ culture. But yeah, just to move off of Mike Pardinas, like his early records, the stuff on Reflex, like Tango Invectif, Bluff Limbo, and he also did this record on Reflective, which I think was like a fake way to almost try to make a sub-imprint of Reflex. I'm not even sure, honestly, I don't remember. But this is the Kid Spatula record he did, which has Dance 3. So like one of the best tracks from this homemade electronic period, IDM or whatever, is Dance 2, which is toward the end of Bluff Limbo, which is a double CD, not just a double album, it's a double CD on their independent Reflex imprint, which is, again, Richard D. James, Aphex Twin, and Mike Pardinas. There's so many good songs on this. But so Tango, his debut, has this last song, this hypnotic last song called, was it Beatnik? So like dance and beatnik were these weird themes he was obsessed with, and they end up having like most of his most focused sounds in them. Like they're his most polished tracks from the early days. Then there was this Kinesthesia record. This was so weird. This is Chris Jeff's, like this was in '93, I think. But this is one where like it's not good. This is not a good record, right? But the packaging is so fucking crazy, sort of like that FSOL record, that you're just going to buy it. Because, like, there's nothing like this, you know? And we did, you know? And some of this was coming over on import, so it was pretty easy to get. Some of it wasn't. And that's where things kind of went a little weird for me. As I said, Sawtooth is a big deal. I don't have the vinyl. I never got the vinyl for this. Like, you'd think the one thing of all the crazy shit I'm about to tell you that I did, that I would go get the original vinyl of this, but I never did. One of the interesting things about this record is, you know, I mentioned the internet. This record is based around code, right? Similar to Factory Records, which is a big precursor for a lot of the attitude that Warp had and that Richard D. James had himself, which is codes, symbols, you know, weird language, repetitive in-jokes. And all the symbols on this record that correlate to songs, they correlate to like the length of the song. And what developed from this was this obsessive community that started posting on the internet. And there started to become this FAQ, which was a new thing, frequently asked questions, about this record and about decoding this record. And so we started using the internet to find out everything we could about this guy. And all these other people started posting, the whole history of his work. And by this point, he's starting to get noticed. Like, it's a few years before he ends up getting straight up on TV pieces about him. Like, there's a pretty famous interview with him and John Peel, which they filmed in the Gonna Pit. And in it, he actually gives away something really bad in it. He's like, yeah, the first money I got when I was a teenager was helping my dad, who was shutting down the tin mines. And he says, that's where I bought my first synths when I was 17. So that was one of the other things. They love to fucking lie. They just straight up lied and made shit up all the time. And one of the things that he made up is so pervasive is the fact that his first real compilation, once Didgeridoo had taken off and Polynomial C and these other tracks that were hitting in the clubs for R&S in Germany, he brought all of his shit over there, and R&S mapped out his first release, which is Selected Ambient Works 85 to 92. 85, I think he was like 11 or 12. So this is actually just more myth making, more fucking with the bio to create a myth around him. So there's two things that happen with all this electronic stuff: making shit up, pseudonyms, and releasing as many records as you can as fast as you could to build a catalog. Because if you have a catalog of 50 to 100 releases, it somehow makes you a more substantial record label. And it's not just, bootlegs and one-offs and, your own label, this fake label you did a single. It helps you appear more established. And tons of labels did this. Ninja Tune totally read from that script. But Warp did it like crazy. And so part of it is that whole, pseudo-intellectual idea of propping yourself up with information and with material. The other is the complete fucking con and ripoff that was recorded music in the 1990s. Because everyone did this. Major labels did this, fucking Radiohead did this, Oasis did this, and Aphex Twin, between Warp, Elektra, Sire, whoever was handling them in between at the time, there are fucking like 7 versions of the On single. Honest to fucking God. And it was such a fucking ripoff. There's one song that's not on, there's the US CD5, then there's 2 versions of the UK CD5, then there's the slipcase CD5. This is all to just get you to buy the same thing 8 times, to get 2 extra tracks that are spread across the different permutations of it. And like the Reload mix is like my favorite mix of On, so I had to track that down. I had to spend like $40 on this shit. Here's the 2 versions of fucking Street Spirit. Here's the 2 versions of Fake Plastic Trees. You had to buy all this to get like a live version or an acoustic version of fucking Bulletproof. And then like, I gotta get India Rubber and fucking Molasses. Like, it was really ridiculous. And like Aphex and Warp were so fucking guilty of this. The other example of this is the Come to Daddy single. It's ridiculous. It's like, let's put some fucking Helvetica stuff out there that's totally block lettered and minimal. And the only place the tracks are listed is at the very inside of the tray at the top. And in the main one, it's barely legible because it's like 1 shade up from the base tone of the entire packaging. So like there's 2 versions of the fucking Come to Daddy single, right? And then they get compiled for the US into one. And then Warp puts out a compilation one that has a different colored font and a different SKU number, a different catalog number. So you gotta buy 5 versions or 4 versions of Come to Daddy if you want all this stuff. I mean, it's pretty inexcusable, honestly. I look back on it and I'm like, God damn, did I get fleeced? Oh, and then you had to buy the fucking VHS tape of it, Chris Cunningham and all his shit, which has the fucking bizarre Donkey Rhubarb's video in it. That's so weird. But yeah, VHS, man, you gotta have it on the VHS. Home video item. Oh, man, consumerism. We're doing it ironically, guys. It's a sardonic comment on how consumer society is so meaningless and empty. And you would get obsessed with a label for no reason. Oh, FX. Like, I have to go get everything FX puts out. I have to buy their whole catalog. It's fucking unlistenable, most of this. It's Tetsuo Inouye, like, okay, it's okay, but I mean, I've spent so much fucking money on this stuff, I can't even tell you. It's ridiculous. I'm like sick thinking about it. Strata was the same thing. In New York, they had like, yep, awesome. I'm buying this. The artwork is so intense. This is like, anti-art, man. I can handle it. I want all this money back, dude, for real. I got kids I got to send to college, okay? So this collector mania is something that's not in everybody. As I've said in a number of these recent videos, most people aren't like this. But I was. And in the late 90s, right before the turn of the century, it became like an illness. It was like a disease. In the really, really late 90s, I went on kind of a walkabout. I had met somebody, and like one of the primary aspects of our relationship was a shared obsession with Aphex Twin. So this is somebody who had also been on the internet for the last few years in college, obsessing about his various monikers, and all the Universal Indicator records are actually him. And did you get Joyrex? Could you find the Caustic Window EP and all this stuff? And right around this time, Warp and RNS and all these other labels, and Reflex too, were looking at it like, fuck, there's like this huge demand for his stuff. So they reissued Analog Bubble Bath 3. Which was, like, at the time, Analog Bubble Bath 2, AFX 2, whatever, and a lot of that stuff had gotten licensed by the Wax Trax TVT American deal. So you were getting that. You were able to get the original Analog Bubble Bath on CD5, like, in the mall. It was everywhere. But Analog Bubble Bath 3 was this, like, legendary, crazy, rare record. There was a CD, too, and they were both, like, covered in bubble wrap. And they came with all these weird inserts and stuff. So when it got reissued in 97 by Reflex, I bought 3 copies of it, which is not really normal. It's like, I don't know why I did this. Like I said, it is seriously, it was like an illness. Like, I don't know. It's really weird. Like, I think back and I'm just like, what the fuck were you doing, man? Like, why would anyone do that? You know? And then this came out, the Caustic Window came out, compilation of Joyrex and everything. So this person I was with had the Analog Bubble Bath 3 vinyl, which was like insane. And there's an insert in this, which is, it shows like the up to that point in 93, I think it was when it came out. It was right around the time that Kinesthesia record came out. There's an insert that shows all the other catalog items that Reflex has. And it's like a paper tearaway, and it says places of interest in Cornwall. And so we went on a trip to go see all the places that we could around the Southwest that were mentioned, or that we could, decode. And we were there for about a week only, rented a car. We were in Newquay. And the Bougie Inn, I'm not sure how even you would pronounce it as an American, but he used to DJ there. It's like Blackpool. It's like a total tourist fucking trap. Like, when the tourist season's off, it's like fucking dead. Like, anybody from there will tell you, Cornwall or anywhere in the area. Like, it's a very on-off community. It gets real quiet in the off-season and real touristy in the on-season, which is fine. You weather it. But Newquay's in between, like, Tintagel, where there's this famous castle. It's Arthurian castle on a cliff. And then the real south, where, like, Portreath and all these other places are that informed and were referenced in his song titles and in this insert, which is explicitly, again, a tourist guide of this place where he grew up. And it's, it's sort of like, Wales in a way. They have their own mythos, their own mythology, and their own language, Cornish. And so most of the people who go there, a lot of them anyway, are like language tourists who want to hear you speak Cornish, and like, we weren't at all like that. I mean, it's for me anyway, and for the person that's with it, we felt like tourists. We were kind of embarrassed, but then that makes you look like a complete fucking dork. Like, you're just this, like, shuffling, backpacking nerd, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing in my town? But we went to, like, Gwynedd Pit and the Glendergan Maze and the Logan Rock. Logan Rock, which is like this big-ass fucking boulder all the way down south. Like, but, you go too far south, it's like Pirates of Penzance tourism. You don't want any of that shit on you. But, and of course, like, one of the most famous aspects of Aphex Twin is this logo, right? Which is so signature. And, these are all the analog 12 inches. But a guy called Paul or Pete Richardson or something. He designed the logo as like a streetwear campaign. He was trying to sell a font to like a skateboard company in the early 90s. And so, like, he's got scratch pads of when he was developing the logo. So it's 100% known where the logo comes from. But the thing that struck me when we were up there is that there is a special boomerang called a Cornish Outback. And so we're at the castle again. There's like a totally cute gift shop. I don't know. I looked it up on the internet. I think it's closed now. I'm not sure. But this, this is made in North Cornwall by the British. It's certified by the British Boomerang Society. And it is called a Cornish Outback. And I bought it when we were over there. I think it was £5 or £6. $5.45. I paid a lot fucking more than £5.45 for all of these fucking Aphex Twin, for the fucking Tuss CD. Are you shitting me? Why did I buy this? What the fuck is wrong with me? All these 2 mixes by Aphex. It's a Smodge Face EP. Why? Why do I own this? Like, what the fuck? All of this sucks. There's not even any good music on it. Why did I buy this? That was a little bit after. And then shortly thereafter that, I kind of came out of the fog. But I just thought this was the funniest thing. Because I didn't know about the logo. I didn't know it was part of some guy's attempt to become a graphic designer. And that's all out there now. For the longest time, I thought this Cornish Outback was somehow a reference and the reason behind the Aphex Twin logo. And I was pretty fucking bummed when I found out it wasn't, to be honest. But yeah, it's a disease, man. And I guess the thing about him, the sinking of the Titanic. So this is just literally a drum loop. It's a drum loop thrown over a few loops, and it is well composed and everything, but people forgot about this fucking thing. I did. And it's like 8 minutes of just like a loop up and down. It's on Point Music, some American big, major sub-label. He didn't give a shit about it. This is like 26 mixes for cash to him. Like, he didn't fucking care about any of this. These stupid, like the weird Mike Flowers Pops fucking 7-inch. CD5, and like eventually he's just like, takes a dump and calls it 26 mixes for cash. Everyone's heard the Lemonhead story where he, they woke him up and asked for a remix and he just handed him a DAT and was like, fuck off. I mean, there's a lot of bullshit to it, but the thing is underneath it, like the Hangable Audible Bulb stuff that got reissued on CD, those were super hard to find. And then when you found them, you were like, this is actually fucking awesome. Like, this is my favorite kind of his music. And it was evolutionary. Like, he stepped into jungle and D&B a little bit with Girl Boy and the self-titled Richard D. James album, which has like 4 and Logan Rockwood and all this stuff. Those were great records. And he could like hang. It's like Tyson. It's like fucking, Bo Jackson, a great athlete. This is a guy who could hang with anybody. When Jenkins came up, don't even talk to me about the fucking amount of money I spent on Square Pusher bullshit. Like, yeah, I need to have the Square Windows CD3. I need that. I need the book version of Ultra Visitor. What the fuck am I doing? Oh my god. And this is what kills me, is that Square Pusher fucking sucked. He totally blew it after the first 3 records. All of his jazz shit, I fucking hate this stuff. And I hate that I tried to like it. But like Feed Me Weird Things was amazing. Port Rhombus is one of the best fucking EPs. And he totally like tweaked D&B and made it this cool jazzy thing. And you gotta get the Burning and Tree comp. The comp of all the original 12 inches is fucking awesome. I give him full respect for that, but then he just pivoted and he did this completely bullshit head, like garbage, jazzy, I'm a real musician shit, and every time they do that, it's so fucking boring. Ugh. And yeah, Burial ended up becoming what I hoped Square Pusher was going to become, basically. Like Untrue and the Burial records were like, and still, like he's still banging it. I honestly, that was the stuff, the haunting stuff on Tundra and the early songs that he had. That's what I wanted to get more of. And Port Rhombus, and that culminates on Big Loda and that amazing 7 a.m. Journey to Reedham remix song. That was what I wanted from him. But he's an artist and he wants to do his own thing and he wants to change. He can go do that. I'm free to check out. But I still kept buying it because I was hoping he was going to make another song like that. And he never fucking did. But yeah, we went down to Portreath. We went down to the bay where this was shot, the cover for the Polygon Window album, and actually the train station around for the Bike Pump meets Bucket 12-inch. God, what the fuck? Why did I buy all this stuff? But I think there was this whole thing about how this was his girlfriend shot all these, and maybe she went out with his friend Tom, and that's what Ta was. Ta was this girl, Samantha. Oh, whatever. Who cares about any of that stuff? But the amount of money I wasted. This was good though. Analog Bulb Bat 4, AFX. This was really good. There's a fucking awesome song on this that Kanye West totally ripped off, or his producers ripped the fuck off on Yeezus. I think it's called Cuckoo or Elephant Song. I can't remember. But so much of what's been going on in hip hop, well, more about 3 years ago was going on, when the whole like acid distorted electro crush stuff started getting pushed to the front way more. Because a lot of people were hearing about Aphex Twin and they're like, I guess it's something I should check out. I'm generally interested in music. And they'd put it on and they'd be like, holy shit, this is fucking crazy, terrifying. This is like watching The Exorcist. I'm all set. Like, this guy didn't pick up people from word of mouth. He lost more people through word of mouth than he ever gained. Honest to God. I mean, fuck. Even the big record, like, the cover, it's sort of like, oh, this is kind of druggy. Why did I buy? I had to buy the Japanese version of this so I could have the Japanese fucking spine. But yeah, you know, I mean, it was like a goof, like Girl Boy. Most people interpreted it as a novelty song. I think it's one of the most beautiful songs ever made. Now, finally, people, you know, general music obsessives, most of them, you ask them, like, what's the best electronic song ever made? Half of them are going to say Ital. First song, Aphex Twin, Selected Ambient Works, 85-92. For me, that, To Hear Knows When, My Bloody Valentine, like, these are top 5 all-time songs for me. Like, still. Like, Ital is just like, bye, I'm done. Brain shut off. I'm not even here. Like, you're just in an emotional fucking fantasy zone. Like, memory, fucking trees, sky, whatever. Like, that song is just, there's no reason to have your eyes open because there's more going on in your head. The second you hear the opening of Ital, it's over. You're like, the real world is totally inferior to the sonic landscape of that song and the emotional landscape that it recreates. It's just, it's so fucking stunning. And it's just got nothing to do with the history before it. It's a straight drum loop, right? But it's not like banging and full of attack like Art of Noise or the, you know, old electro bands and house bands. It's really blurry and fuzzy and weird. Not just like it doesn't even sound like it came off analog tape. That's not it. He's pinched the treble so high that it's just so transportive. And then what he does to the underlying vocal sample and everything, it's absurd. It's absurd. And nothing has even come close to it. Honest to God. You think about all these other big name artists in the history of like electronic music, and everyone's always crate digging to find the magic thing. That song is still the magic thing in all of this electronic stuff. Forget whether it's IDM, house, club, techno, whatever. You know, like the Orbital record, Orbital 2, the brown one with Lush, which, oh my God, so fucking good. But it's sort of trancey and housey and like, not really house, but, you know, housey and on, and like, Orbital Belfast originally before that, the first record. The Orbital was huge, and the Orb too was, I mean, Aubrey's Adventures, like they had blown up crazy huge by 93 when Aphex is coming up in the popular consciousness. There were lots of other artists, but he was so singular, and so many people bought into the mystique that he was manufacturing and that Warp was manufacturing for him. But then he flipped it on its head with Come to Daddy and perfected it in Window Licker. And I look back, I mean, this is also potentially in my top 5 songs of all time because there's just never been anything like Window Licker. It is so singular. It's even more singular than Ital, really. If you understand anything about how electronic music, computer music is made, if you can recognize how much was done, like sometimes you hear an electronic song and it sounds amazing and complex, but if you actually break it down and think, like, work through it, it's super simple. It's like Control-C, Control-V, Control-C, Control-V, and the song is basically a bunch of Lego blocks. The amount of stuff that's going on in this throughout the entire song is absolutely nuts. And the first proposition of that, and again, it's a reaction to Square Pusher, was Girl Boy. With this, he's just like, I'm going to another planet. I'll see you later. And it's like everything. Disco, funk, fucking Prince, everything is in there. Bat dance, yeah. And the video is one of the freshest things of all time. Now, you can fucking put that out today. If you put out the fucking intro 6 minutes of Window Licker in 2018, are you fucking kidding me? This guy'd be in fucking jail. Honest to God, there'd probably be a fucking warrant out for Chris Cunningham and Richard James in America if they put out Window Licker today. Because there is no room for any fucking facetious commentary on society in our society anymore. They are gonna fucking blow you out, man. They are gonna fucking burn you. You're done. They're gonna drag your ass until you are bone. The second you try to make a joke that has any fucking sarcasm or facetiousness or plays to historical stereotypes, you can't communicate that anymore. Because you can't assume that the person who's receiving that message can interpret it correctly. Can interpret it as sardonic commentary. What's the fucking point? I don't want anything that comes out of a culture with that fucking attitude. You know? I'm going to end up with like 50 boring ass fucking worthy people singing about social justice and fucking, you know, taking care of the poor and what's going on the other side of the planet. I got money to spend if I care about that. I don't want music for that. We tried that in the 80s. They were called Midnight Oil. What did they end up doing? They actually got into politics because that's the only way you can make a fucking difference. It's so infuriating. I was talking to Fantano about this yesterday. It was really frustrating. Oh, the Black Dog making fun of Eno. Music for adverts? This was fucking brilliant. He was super fucking funny. Music for adverts and short films. Just hating on your own fucking genre. Hating on yourself. That's the best. Pritchard D. Jams.